Hello. Hi, Amy. How are you? I have this, that's such a weird angle. How's it going? Hi, Kim. Hi, Hillary. How's it going? Nice to see you all. I've got all the samples for you today. I got the receipts. Hi, Rachel. Hello, Mary. Hi, Tiffany. Oh, Tiffany, it's your favorite bodice. I almost warned you. It's been like, we had like 4 or 5 days of just immaculate, beautiful, warm, sunny weather. And now it's back to rainy. I almost missed the stream because I thought it felt like 10:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh, it's 1:30. The time warp of the clouds. So, all right. So this week I was planning on doing something about fitting the back, and I sort of had a bee in my bonnet about a particular thing about that, and that's when I scheduled that and created that live stream. But the bee's flown away, and I'm more focused on something else right now. And I really want these to be kind of timely and like things that are on my mind. So I wanted to talk about, and I will touch on back fitting. I'm going to touch on a lot of things, but I wanted to show you the difference between selecting your size using your high bust measurement or your full bust measurement. And I know that this isn't always possible with a lot of pattern companies because you don't know what size, like what the high bust measurement is on their chart. So I thought I would show you kind of how to do that if you can find that out, even if it's not on the size chart. And that's kind of a misleading thing I just said. And what I mean is I know what it is for this particular size chart, so you can always reach out to the company and ask them, and then you'll be able to do your own little bit of sleuthing. So I want to be really clear. So anyway, I'm using the So Liberated Hinterland bodice today, and I'm using it because I'm really familiar with it. I fit a lot of people with it, and it's a really simple bodice. Like, it's a simple visual bodice. There's only one dart, and it's in the front, and it's right here in the side. Right here, it's a side dart going right here. I know muslin is terrible, but, and then there's no darts in the back. So I have done all of the size selections based on this dress form. Hi, Terry. And so I'm going to walk you through a lot. I have I think I have 5 bodices here. So I'm also going to put the size chart on the screen briefly. Ah, shoot, dang, it's on the screen here. Okay, so you can't see me. I'm right here. All right, so this is the So Liberated chart, just the first chunk of it. And their high bust measurement, wait, maybe we should talk a little bit about what the high bust measurement is. The high bust measurement is this measurement above your bust. It doesn't matter if you're busty or you're not busty. This is important for fitting. So it's right up here, right? So it's like this area above your bust here. And I have the tape measure kind of going the wrong direction, but you get the idea, right? So you do your best to kind of get this above the bust area there, right? And on the So Liberated chart, they just tell you our high bust measurement is 3 inches less than the full bust measurement. And some people were going to give you that numbers like right on top of the other. So if we were to look at their chart here, hi Julie, hey Dar, how's it going? Nice to see you. This dress form that is right here in front of us measures 40 inches. All right, so we would look here at the 16 as the bust. And I think that's what I have here on the dress form. So you have to do a little bit of math, and this can get really confusing. So just draw right directly onto your chart. Even I do this right here. I have a little chart, and I draw it in. I like just write it in right above so that you're not constantly doing the math while you're trying to figure something out. Like, just do the math once, set it in rating there. And then it's also a really great way to kind of go, if you go wrong somewhere, you can look back and go, oh, maybe this is where I went wrong, right? Okay. So if I'm looking at the high bust measurement for this girl here, Trixie. She is going to be in the size 18. I don't know why I just said 16 to you. So it's usually written on the size chart, Amy, and that's what I was showing here on this chart here. It doesn't have it written in. So you would want to ask the company if it's not somewhere, like sometimes they'll write it right below, like see where it says your measurement. Sometimes it'll be written right there. I've seen it in a chart there where it'll say the high bust measurement in our chart is 3 inches less than the bust. And so you would look at this and go, the 16 would be 37 and a half, the 14 would be 36, the 12 would be 34 and a half. All right. And that's why I say just write it directly and print it out, write it down, or make yourself a little chart like I do. I actually make myself a little grid right here, and then I just write it in. And so the full bust measurement of this person here is a size 16, but her high bust measurement is the size 18. So that we're already in 2 different sizes, right? And the high bust measurement is going to be more closely related to your shoulders and above. And this circumference is super important because if you're only fitting for this one, then you're going to shortchange yourself somewhere where you're either going to get something that's too small for your shoulders, too large for your shoulders, unless you're lucky, and your high bust is the same measurement as your full bust. Not the same measurement, but as in the same category, okay? And hi, Renee. I haven't gotten too far. So I should have drawn like a really big chart so I could do some of this math in front of you, but I do have a bunch of patterns today. So let's say you were making this pattern and your bust measures 40, it's like 40 and a quarter. And you're like, all right, well, look at that, 40 and a quarter. I'm gonna make the size 16 here. Look at that, my bust, you know, measures for 40 and a quarter, right? Can we grab this? And that puts me in the 16, right? And if your waist was larger or smaller, maybe you would grade between sizes or look at the fit of this particular pattern and go, you know, this is a pretty loose, relaxed fit. I can get away with my waist being a little bigger than this size I'm in the bust, right? Hi, Anne. However, if I were to pick that size 16 and try it on, you can see it's not quite right. I feel like it's okay through the shoulders, but if I'm being really honest, I know that this particular garment it's gonna need a little bit more because it's supposed to be a more casual, relaxed fit. And so, you know, one of the things you need to look at when you're fitting a bodice is where is the seam line, right, on the armholes, right? And so if I draw that in there, the armhole is really ending here. And this hinterland, if you look at the photos of it, that's not where it's supposed to end. I don't care where you want it to end. I'm telling you where it's supposed to end, how it was designed to end. You can change the design, but you can't really start from a place of fitting if you're changing the design based on your fit rather than changing the design once the pattern does fit, right? Because then you're just changing the style of it. So if you're just like, well, I don't really I prefer my shoulders to end right here, so I'm going to pick a smaller size. Well, that's going to lead to other problems. So if you're changing the design, you should fit the pattern the way it was intended to fit, and then go from there, because now you're starting from neutral, right? And I know it sounds like a lot, but this is kind of one of my points today is that I think if you're really interested in fitting, and I'm not advocating for this in some ways, if you're really interested in fitting and you really want a well-fit garment, it's a lot of work sometimes. And I think a lot of people want to skip as many samples as possible and get right to the end. So do I. So I think that you either need to compromise and go, all right, I'm willing to make as many samples as it takes, or at least get really close. I'll make my final garment live with it for a few months and maybe make some tweaks from that, right? Hi, Sydney. So I am not a fan of super fitting my garments before I make them every time. And I'll tell you why. I come from the garment industry. We would have made 40 before we went to production, and I'm not interested in making 40. I want to make a garment, right? And so if it's something that I think I'm going to make a lot, if my fabric is super precious, if it's something that I feel like could be a good base to riff on and make other designs, I'm going to spend the time and fit it. Or I'm going to get it close and then I'm going to revisit it and I write notes. And if you look at any of my patterns, there's a lot of notes in them and they'll say, next time, do this. And then I'll usually write, you fixed this, or I delete the note so I know that I did it. So I have a lot of people that just really want to know what to do to make it fit. And it's usually a process and it does take a little bit of time, but it's kind of worth it because it's kind of interesting. But I don't think you have to have like perfectly fitted garments all the time. Like I think you can let some things go. And I'm going to show you some of the things I would let go in this case as well. So, and incidentally, I'm using this garment not just because I know it really well, but because most of my patterns I have made fitting changes to, and so I didn't have a copy of any of them without changes. And some of them are the original tissue pattern, and I didn't want to show you something that was already perfectly fit. I wanted to show you what I would do if I was making this from scratch for Trixie, okay? So here we are, we've got the 16, we picked this size based on her full bust measurement because we didn't think about the high bust, or we didn't know it, or we didn't know that could be an option, right? And some of the things that I know now to look for, especially on this pattern, is making sure, like if I'm fitting a dress form, it's very different than fitting a person. If I was fitting a person, this might not even be sitting on the dress form in the same way as it would on the person. And this is something I find a lot with this pattern, is that a lot of times it does this. Like that. It kicks back and it doesn't look like that. It doesn't, I'm kind of exaggerating it like this. And so I really want you to take time when you're fitting yourself and go like this. Like I want you to go, all right, the shoulder seams, I can't really get them exactly on my shoulders, but I'm going to get them the same on both sides to where it's comfortable. I'm going to get my center centered. Take a moment to do this, please. You will save yourself so much heartache later if you take some time to line up your centers, line up your side seams, line up your shoulders. They don't have to be like, you don't have to force it if you're like, oh, this thing's not going on my shoulders. That's fine. I'm just saying take some time to get things centered, okay? That's awesome, Julie. I love that. So, so here we are, we're kind of at this point, and I can see, like, do you see these little ripples here at the neck? And we can kind of see a little bit right here. Now, this garment doesn't have any darts or shaping on the back. You either need seams, darts, pleats, tucks, or gathers to shape the back. I think this would get a pass in my book for me, and I'll tell you why. If I put a sleeve on this, this is instantly going to get kind of gobbled up by the sleeve. It's not going to be a big deal. If it's sleeveless, I might look at this, but here's the other thing I know about this particular garment. The neckline and the armholes, even if it's sleeveless, or if it, you know, if the sleeve would get a sleeve, this armhole would get a sleeve, but if the neckline, if this was a sleeved one, the neckline gets a bias facing. Bias facings are really tricky to sew and get looking really amazing, right? And get really flat. But even if you do, the thing about a bias facing is it's gonna draw in the neck because there's a lot of sewing that happens there. You go over it, let's see, you attach the bias facing, you understitch the bias facing, you turn it under and you stitch it down. 3 rows of stitching right here on this little delicate curve, right? So it's gonna get a lot of handling. The bias is gonna draw it in. Most likely, it's not going to sit flat because it's kind of tricky to sew and it takes a lot of practice, and some fabrics just don't behave, you know, it's hard, right? So I would let this go. Not to mention that most of it's happening like The seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So if I were to take it out, it'd be like this, the most micro of darts right here, right? So I'd give it a pass, right? Some people might not. They really can't not fit that, and that is so fine. We can fit this, right? We could rotate this and maybe even make this a larger dart. I don't know, but shoulder blades, right? You have shoulder blades, and you can even see like mine's poking out because I have a seam on this base fabric here. So you can't expect this to fit close to your body or smooth without shaping. It's just not possible. So if you want it to be flatter, you can add some darts, which is awesome. I love darts. I think they're amazing. So, but I think this is pretty good. I don't really like the bust position. You know, my apex is here. This one's pointing like right over here. I would change that. The end of the dart right here is putting the fullness of the bust sort of out, like, see, it's right here when my bust is here. This right here tells me that maybe I would want to rotate that to the dart or let it loose, because this has a heavy gathered skirt, which is going to evenly distribute this little wing here, probably, and it won't show as much. So there's a few things. But I don't think the shoulders are quite right. It looks really good on the dress form, but if this was on a person, it'd be very obvious because their arm would be sticking out here, and it would look like a sleeveless garment. And we don't want this to look like a sleeveless garment. It's got a sleeve coming, and it's supposed to be a relaxed shoulder style, right? So let's say we decide we want to try this high bust thing, and let's look at the ease too. Like, do we want a closer fit? Do we want to, think about the circumference here? It is a pretty relaxed fit. This is the intended fit, right? So this is the size 18, right? 16. This is the size 16. And this would be based on my full bust measurement. So now if I wanted to base it just on my high bust measurement, I'm going to pick the 18 because my shoulders are broader than the 16 was. This always takes me a couple of minutes to get this on here nicely, so apologize. And once I show you this one, I'm going to show you how, like, if I wanted to grade between the two and how I did that. And I have the muslin for that already sewn, but I'm going to show you how I did it. And I also have a size 14 bodice here, just in case I wanted, because I get a lot of feedback from people that want a closer fit sometimes. And I just wanted to show you, like, selecting a smaller size isn't always the way to go. It can work sometimes depending on your garment. Like, I do it on these really oversized things. Like, I did it on the pierced shirt, and I think I did it pretty successfully on the pierced shirt. I'm really particular about this, but I don't know why my center fronts aren't matching when they were cut exactly the same. So it's another little, I'm just going to give you all kinds of little tips today. Yeah, this is the Solo Braid hinterland. I'm just using it as an example since it's a pretty neutral bodice. It looks a little like a sloper, so it's kind of like it's something we're familiar with. So let me put the center on the center, and then let me see if I can get the shoulders on the seams. Push the seam allowance open. It was like pushed one way, so it lays nice and flat. I'm super picky. So when you are, say you have a bodice and it has a sewn on placket, or maybe the front is on the fold, but you need to get this on and off when you're doing your muslin, you can just add like 3/4 of an inch to the front and use that as a little placket, right? And you can see the way I like to do this is I just iron back the width of what I added. And then that way I know I can just line up this width I can line up these cut edges to each other and I will be accurate when I line it up. But here's the thing you have to know. It's this fold edge that's the center, not the center of that excess. Because it's not excess once we've folded it back. This center line now, we've folded the excess back. So this fold is the center line, and that is a really sneaky thing. Another way you can do it is if you just draw a straight line, straight down from your notches, where your center, and then overlap that line. And so then you would see, you know, that 3/4 of an inch here and on this side, and they would be overlapped. All right, so now this one looks pretty big. Let me slide over a little tiny bit. I think like this just looks really too big. Like I'm kind of moving this so you can kind of see how much fabric is sitting here. I can see all the way down to her shoes, if she was wearing any, right? If I really wanted a loose fit, this would be a nice choice, but I'm probably looking for something a little bit more following the lines of my body. I'm not going to say fitted. Just something less sloppy. I like that term. But I do like the shoulders a little better. Look, we've got a little bit hanging off here now. See, here is the armhole, right? You can kind of see. And we have it hanging off on this side too. If we had the seam allowance turned back, it'd be hanging barely off. That is ideal. That's what it's supposed to be doing, right? Just like that. I like the way this is hanging in the back, like it's hanging straight down. The waist, I find, is a little tilted up in the front, and that's a very like common thing with this pattern. But if you wanted it parallel to the floor, you could do that, right? You could make those changes. No, so I haven't done that quite yet, Kim. So this one here is, I just picked it based on the high bust measurement, and that would have put me in the 18. And the bodice before this was if I picked using my full bust measurement. So it was supposed to be fitting the bust the best, right? So now we've fit the shoulders the best, so everything above the bust. Best bust. Hi, Michelle. And hi, Glory. All right, so at this point, I'm kind of like, this bodice is too big. I don't really want something like this. If I was wearing this right now, you'd kind of feel embarrassed looking at me because it'd feel very revealing. You'd be able to see down into my shirt. I'd just be swimming in this armhole, but it'd be feeling good up here, right? We're kind of going, well, gosh, this is kind of the best fitting shoulders I've had in a while. But it's so big and sloppy. How am I going to deal with that? And the thing is, we can grade between the sizes, so we can select the high bust of the one size and the full bust of the other size. And you can do this whether it's smaller or larger in either direction. So it can help anybody for this case. And I see a lot of people whose high bust and full bust are the same measurement. So they're definitely going to have to pick a much larger size so that they're accommodating their high bust. But they may not have a very large cup, like a large bra cup, if their full bust and their high bust are similar. So they're just finding that they need, maybe they were a triathlete or a swimmer. I've definitely fit a lot of triathletes and swimmers, and they have a very interesting body shape. That's you, Tiffany. Yes, exactly. So I also want you to note how we can see these little wings hanging off, and this right here. And this is sometimes mistaken for needing a full bust adjustment. And we clearly don't need more volume. What we need is more shaping, and we need it to be a little bit smaller. So, all right, so now I'm gonna show you, let's marry these two. Would you guys like to see the 14? Like, say you're like, I want a fitted bust. Well, maybe we could do that at the end, because it's kind of more of a smarmy teacher thing. Okay, I want to keep track of these bodices because they all look the same. This one's my 18-16. We're going to try that. And then we have this 18. And we have the 16. These are the whole sizes. All right. All right, so this again is our size chart. Budge overs, Trixie. I love that UK expression. Budge up. Smarmy teacher, yep. You know it. So here again is our size chart. Can you, Tiffany? I can't. And again, like if you were selecting this particular garment, are you all familiar with this pattern? I should have pulled up a photo of what this pattern looks like. Maybe I can do that really quickly. Ugh. And full disclosure, I'm sure a lot of you know this. I work in the Sew Liberated forum, helping people fit this among other things. I'm not trying to promote it or not promote it. I just know it really good. So here, I'm gonna see if I can share. Can I share my screen? I don't know if I can. Can you guys still hear me? So here's the hinterland. Can you still hear me? I just want to make sure you can. It looks like you can. Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so here's the hinterland. You can see, so let's look at this. Like, it is not a super fitted tight bodice, right? Very comfortable, casual, relaxed fit. Lots of ways to make it look, right? This is a hack to make it into a top. There you go, there's the sketches. All right, so we're all on the same page. Okay, just want to make sure we are all on the same page. Okay. So here's the chart, and I happen to know that the high bust measurement is 3 inches smaller than the full bust measurement on their chart. So if I knew what my high bust measurement was, then I usually write it above the number. I would just write it right here at the top in that where it says inches. I would just write it right there. And then I would look. And then you can kind of go, and then I would circle it. I'm very, very direct about this. Like I do this, right? So here is my chart, right? High bust, bust, and then I put my E's in here too. And then these are the sizes. And so this is the chart. And then I subtract 3 inches and put those numbers right above. So then I can find me on here. It's for wovens. It is not a dropped sleeve, and because I've asked about how to describe it to them, and it's more of a relaxed or casual fit. It's a relaxed shoulder. So the shoulder seam doesn't land like this coat does, right on top of my shoulders. It's gonna like just be off of your shoulder a little bit. So if that makes sense. All right, so here I have the 18, the 16, I have the 14 here. And so I've decided, okay, my high bust is 39. My full bust is 40. In the 16, it's like 40 1/4. Yeah, of course. And so if we wanted to grade these two together, I'm actually kind of excited about grading between sizes with you guys because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, like grading between sizes in general. Oh, I don't have a piece of paper ready. Shoot. Because there's some really subtle things with grading between sizes that I think that even I was being really flippant about for a while. I hate cutting paper on stream. I'm sorry for the noise. Just mute it for a second. And don't worry, I've already cut, I'm going to show you how to grade this, but I've already cut it in muslin and sewed it together, so you don't have to wait for that. You get to see the results right away. All right, and then this one right here is the 18 and 14. Yeah, okay. And you, what are you? You are the 14 bodice. Okay. There's a lot of muslin flying around here. Oh dear, flippant. And what I mean by that is, that's another thing I really wanted to have on the screen for you guys. I thought I was prepared. I did so much just cutting and sewing and stuff. Let me, I don't really want to I don't want to bog you down with the whole, like grading between sizes type of lecture thing. I just want to show you why there's more to it than it seems, okay? So let's see, let's pull this one up. Okay, as a side note, yesterday I was so irritated with Adobe Reader that I thought there was like a little thing that's like, leave feedback. And I was like, I would be delighted to leave feedback. I went to leave feedback. You guys, if you want some entertaining reading and you're an avid Adobe Reader user and you are very much disliking it right now because there's this AI thing that pops up, there's this little tab. I'll show you because I'm going to show you this anyway. So this, when you have it like this, or there's a lot of tabs across, or this is narrower, this little button, it does this, and I'm creating a PDF. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. There's also this weird little AI thing at the bottom that pops up on some screens. And it's super irritating right now to use this program. And every time I open it, I have to close something over here, and I have to decrease this. I have to do like 3 things before I can even look at it. It's really irritating. Well, I went onto their thing to leave some feedback, and I am not the first person to do that. It's hilarious. So I felt like it was already in good hands. So anyway, all right, let's look at the grade here. I promise if you're not into this, or if this is just too detailed, just hang on. We're going to skip this in a second, and I'm going to show you how to grade between sizes. But I want you to look at the differences between the necks. So we're looking at the back, and look at the center back neck here. And do you see how they step down one below the other, right? Now, this is by design how they are presenting it to you visually. That is not how it was graded. That is the grade difference. But it is not like they didn't put it like this and then click the point and grade it that way. Maybe they did. The thing is, you can stack this point, like right here. I could click it right there in the grading program and nest them all together, and they would all be flush. All those necklines would be flush. I didn't change the patterns at all, because then this gap right here would be much larger, right? If you were to lay these all down on one of another, nest them, and then let the shoulders show you the difference, that's what it would look like. And this is why I say grading between sizes can be really subtle and a little bit confusing. Where am I here? So we can even do it on this one here if we were to nest these all together. And we saw what they look like on the screen, right? So if we were to line them all up, and you can see the difference between the shoulders and what it really is. So the problem with being a home sewer is that you don't have, most likely, you don't have the resources, the time, the money, whatever it takes to print every single size and then look at the difference between each one. Like you just, it's just too much work, right? And I can see like right here, the grade between the 14 and the 16 is smaller than the grade between the 16 and the 18, right? And you can't really see that as well when you look at the printed, the copy shop version, right? And they could have given this to you, this pattern to you like this. Like they could have lined up the underarm point right here. And then all of your centers would have been like boop, boop, boop. Mine are all wavy. You can't really see them. And then your shoulders would look like there's a lot of different ways to present this to you. And the reason I'm telling you this is because if you grade between sizes the way the pattern's been given to you, it may not have the same result if you were grading between the sizes if they were individually printed out. This is most impactful with pants because, and I have recorded that video a few times. I think I've mentioned it. I've recorded that video a few times, and I just feel like it's just too much information for people. But it's because like if you were to grade a, I just don't want to get off topic, but you get the idea though, right? Like these are all different sizes, but you can stack them up different ways, and they choose this for you. And a lot of times they're choosing something that is the easiest for you to see, because, you know, we don't like it when we have like a bazillion cross lines at the armhole or the rise, right? Or on these curves or on necklines. So to get it to be less hard to discern which line you're cutting on, they will stack these almost concentrically instead of on a point at a 0, 0 point, right? Because if you were to grade this in a program, there would be a 0, 0 point, and everything moves in relation to this point. This point never moves. And then once it's all graded, you can stack them up, and then that 0, 0 point shifts around on the pattern, right? You didn't change the size of anything, but you are moving where they are in relation to each other. They are still their own little being, but in relation to each other, that never changes. Like the difference doesn't change, but you can't see it very well. So anyway, I just thought I would take this chance because I have 3 sizes printed out, and that's really rare, to show you this and to show you how it's a lot easier also to grade between sizes. Well, it's really easy to grade between sizes on a graded nest that's been handed to you as a copy shop because they're right there and you just draw between the lines. But are you actually grading between the sizes? Sometimes you might be negating whatever you're doing because of how they've been stacked and presented to you. So I'm just going to stop there. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense, because I feel like it's a really interesting thing. And I talk about it to people that do this, and they say that it's so hard to decide how to give you the pattern because of this exact thing. So yeah, anyway, so let me take this 14 out here. All right, so we're gonna grade between the sizes. And so you can see this is my 16, this is my 18. And remember, we want the larger size for the shoulders in this case, and the smaller size for the bust, okay? So I'm gonna trace this 18 first. And because I want the high bust, now remember, always be very literal, right? What am I always telling you guys? Where do you want this change? Where are you focused on right now? The high bust is right here, right? Here's the full bust. The apex is right here on this pattern. Maybe not on me, but this is where the apex is on this pattern, so that is considered the full bust on this pattern. I can move that, that's fine, but we're just going with how it's been presented to us. The high bust is up here, right? We're kind of cutting across this armhole right at the top, because remember, the armhole is not like actually our pit, it's right below. So, and it's never going to be perfect. Like, you're never going to get like this perfect placement, so don't get hung up on it, right? This is all an imperfect science. So just kind of, you know, relax and check it. Make lots of samples, okay? See ya, Tiffany. So here is our full bust, right? So we're gonna trace this upper pattern to right about here. we're gonna include the underarm point here. And we're gonna trace it all the way around. I miss Manila. I'm gonna make my center front here. I have an extension, obviously. Oh no, I don't need to do it down there, but we'll do that down there, but we won't do anymore. And always start with a straight line on your paper before you've done anything. You saw me do this before, right? Okay, there we go. All right, and then I'm gonna mark the apex. We'll just look at it. And then I'm also going to mark what size that is somewhere on here, all right? And so now I'm gonna take the 16. And remember, we're going for like, okay, so now we have to go, all right, well, where am I supposed to line this up at, right? Now, could I have, what if I was focused on the bust area? I could have put a, like drawn a line straight over from this apex and used that as a 0, 0 point on both of these and stacked them up there, right? Like there's lots of ways to do this. We're looking at trying to find the difference, like where you're working, the difference between those two patterns, and that's what you want to be grading. So if I want the difference between this high bust and I want the bust of this one, but the high bust of that one, then I'm going to just line it up at the center front neck here. But I could have used this as a point as well, because I'm more concerned with getting the bust circumference of this smaller size. I feel like that was really confusing to say, but we're gonna use the neckline. It's a very safe spot. It's a very deep neckline, so it makes it a little safe. And can you kind of see, like, let me pull this down a little bit. This is the 16 right here. See, it's further in, right, than the 18. You can see this is further in. So this was the high bust difference here between the 16 and the 18, okay? So we're gonna line it up at the neckline right here, and then we're going to trace this. It's kind of the same thing. I'm gonna include the intersection, so where this armhole intersects this one, and then we're gonna go lower. All right, we're doing the bottom half of this one. And then we need to transfer our dart, and because I did the dart on the other one, I need to make sure I know which one is the one I want. And same with the apex. I don't have an awl right here, so we're just gonna transfer it. And then we're gonna transfer our dart notches. And so now we've only transferred the lower portion of the 16. And right here at this intersection, in this case, is where I'm going to join these two patterns. And the reason being is I'm trying to go as low as possible because we want the full high bust benefit of this 18, right? We're being very literal about it. So now I'm going to cross this out, and we're going to point arrows to the line that we want. I do it on either side if it's very confusing, so I know exactly which line I want. And now we have a hybrid. Apex, oh, this is the apex actually, and this is the vanishing point of the dart. And then that's how I would grade between the sizes of this one. I can show you on the back, but why don't we just get to the new muslin. So I cut this out in a muslin just to see what I think now. Like, all right, I want both. Do I think that it was a good, marriage? Here we go. I really loved the concept of grading between sizes when I came to the home sewing area. I was like, oh my God, this is genius. All the work's been done. I really love it because if you are taking, this area of this size, like if you're using the neckline of this size, use the collar that matches that size, right? It's very literal. You can go, oh, the math's all been done, and I know this neck will match the collar for the 14, even though the rest of the body is the 18, I can safely use it. And I go, oh, I used the waist of this 18. I'm going to use the waistband for the 18. You know, like I really loved how easy that is. But when I realized certain pant patterns in particular were shown concentric like that, right? So like I was showing you, like you could show the smallest and then they get larger and larger, and they're getting larger kind of all the way around the whole pattern. Usually the hem will line up on pants. What I realize is if you're grading between sizes and you're only doing the side seam as your step differentiation between the sizes, because you don't want to touch that crotch curve pretty much ever, especially when you're grading between sizes, you're only getting half the difference between the sizes. And so people will grade between sizes and be like, well, it's a little better, but it's really not that great. And it's because they only went up half the amount they planned on. So if you were skipping 2 sizes, you only went up 1 size. And with pants, a lot of times there's only 1 inch difference between sizes. There's not much difference because a little bit goes a long way, and you know, sizes are usually 1 inch apart. Maybe 2, but not usually in pants. Not if they fit good, or they're close fitting, I should say. So, all right, here we go. Here's our hybrid. We have that shoulder hang off here. We have the smaller bust, and I think that this is a much better place to start. We're much more in that neck of the woods of getting something to start. And from here, if I were to use this to fit, I'll tell you what I would do. I'm going to make sure up here that this is loose. Because the muslin, I can really do this. I can go, oh, yeah, let's fit this. And then what I notice, can you see right here, maybe you can see the silhouette. Do you kind of see this back armhole sort of straining and cupping this ridge here? If there was a real arm in here, this wouldn't be possible. And that's why I know I was like, this is really taut across the shoulder blades here. That's not, we need to relax this and put it on the person the way it would probably be if they were standing here moving around and kind of, you know, squinching it around. I don't know what the word is. And now I can kind of see I have a little bit of looseness up here. I've got this little, you know, wing out here. This is the seam on the dress form underneath. So it's not actually a wrinkle. It's actually a ridge underneath. You can kind of see that. I think I would fit the shoulders first, right? And this right here, this little tiny bit, again, in this case, I might let this go because it's a bias facing. But if I were putting a lining on this or a facing, I would probably then fit this a little closer by putting some darts here. And this right here, I might wait to see if a sleeve sort of gobbles up this little guy here. But ideally, you're getting rid of this as well. And you could pivot this to here or to a shoulder. You could put both of these to the shoulder and make a shoulder dart and get some shaping, right? Your shoulders are the bust of your back. That's what I like to say. They're sticking out, right? Just like your bust is sticking out. And then here, you know, if I did all this and the bust was still looking about the same as it is right now, I would probably lengthen this dart a little bit, because do you see like where the dart ends is where the fullness of the bust, like the dart is usually going to point, it's creating the cup, right? So where that point ends is going to be the greatest cup shaping, and the cup shaping's happening here, right? Would you leave those neck darts there or move them to the back? Wait, would you leave those neck darts there or move them to, what was that? I know that, what are you trying to say there? So I think neck darts look nicer, or not nicer, I don't want to say nicer. I want to say, I feel like neck darts are more acceptable modern-wise. Back to, okay, yeah. If I could rotate this into there, I probably would. You know, because watch, like if I try and pull this up, right? and create a little dart right here. We'll ignore what the front's doing. You can see it gets smooth, right? The neck is smooth, the armhole is smooth, right there. And then I can rotate this to the neckline. Hi Corinne, how's it going? Yeah, shoulder darts are really nice. When I learned to sew shoulder, you would not have found a blouse without a shoulder dart, even loose fitting blouses. And that's just kind of a modern thing that we've sort of drafted it out. It's not to say that they figured some magical thing out to shape people back there without having a dart. They just got rid of it. It's more work in a production environment. You have to mark the pattern, the garment, the fabric before it's sewn. You have to be accurate about it. You have to sew it. There's so much more labor for every single dart. And I'm sure they just got rid of those. And then you start seeing that trickle down into home sewing as well. And so it's like a trend. So yeah, I mean, but you can see how much nicer that is. And that would have been kind of my point today about everybody needs back shaping because we all have shoulder blades, right? So that looks really nice. All right, and so getting back to this bust area, you can see that this is here. Now, if you're finding that you're getting a pucker at the end of your dart, usually that means your dart is too tight. Like it's like too much there and it's doing this kind of weird pucker thing at the end. Open up your dart a little bit. And if you're like, no, I really need this shaping, then you need to probably do something else, adding volume or taking away volume through here. Because remember, this is supposed to be kind of aimed at where the fullest part of your bust is. And this is not a fitted bodice, right? This is a looser fitting bodice. So it really shouldn't be so obvious that there's this dart with, it's like a double bust. See it right there? Boop. So there's a bust here and a bust here right now. And I look at this and I think, I'm not a big fan of this right here, but what I could do, pinch this out and then rotate it into this side dart, right? Like if we were to make this dart a little larger, you see how it went away? It's kind of a, let me sell it better. Let's see. It's kind of hard when there's already a dart there. But you can kind of see it gets rid of the waist wing there, and we can make it even better than that because we could pull more, right? You're getting rid of it. So using these darts as points to rotate fullness is great. And there's more now. Yeah. I don't know what that is about, Anne. Only dancers have flat upper backs. Yep, and then they have other issues. Like they're probably the necks of all their garments are, what would it be then? Would their necks be too far forward because they're so far back? They have other issues. All right, so you see this right here. We talked about this last week, right? We can rotate that into the side dart here. This is that armhole gape issue. But I think this is closer. And remember, like we're also trying to remember, always separate what you want this garment to be like and what it was intended to be. Because you're kind of fighting the design if you're changing it as you go. So think about more like fitting it almost all the way, like get it like 3/4, almost all the way there to what the design was intended. Then start making your changes to make it into the style you want. Like if you're like, I really like this bodice, but I think I'd really like a double dart here. I want a dart here. I want a dart here. I really want like a severe hourglass shape. We're gonna add a back waist dart here, right? We're gonna bring this up onto the shoulder. Fit it first, then go and do all that because it'll go a lot faster because now you've already got a garment that fits, and all you have to do is add your style lines. It's kind of like making it into its own little sloper in a way, right? So, all All right, and then I thought I would show you the 14 on here just for giggles, because like there's a lot of ease, and I think a lot of people would really like this bodice to be more fitted sometimes. And I wanted to just talk about, like, does anyone know where I put that one? I think it's up here. Changing the ease of your garment by selecting a smaller size is really, it's going to work somewhat. Because you're not only changing how small it is around, you're also changing your armhole sizes, your neck sizes, where the waist is, where the armholes are, where the neckline is, right? All those things are moving as well. You're not just removing the ease, right, and making it more fitted. You're changing everything. And I really like to tell people that when they have started fitting something, it's not that size anymore. It's size them, you know. It's size Julie or it's size Terry or whatever, right? So try not to get hung up on the size that you had to choose. It's not you, you know, it's just that's the pattern, what it measured for that, for you, you know, that's all. It's not a big deal. So, all right, so here's the 14, and you can see it's a lot closer fitting. Look at that. And in some way, why are you slouching, Trixie? Your bust, well, that wouldn't tell me if you need the shoulder darts, Corinne. It's really if you want the shaping. It really depends on the shirt you're wearing or blouse you're wearing and how fitted it is. So it really depends on a lot of things. I think like this looks really good on here, but she doesn't have arms. And she clearly needs a full bust adjustment, right? She needs something. It's either that or you're fitting it within an inch of its life, right? You're going, all right, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of this, right? Because the closer fitting it is, these aren't really gapes anymore. You're just getting rid of everything, right? You can tell this dart is still sort of landing in the wrong spot. See how there's this looseness right here? And in this case, I think that I mean, obviously I would change where the apex is because it's way up here. I would put it right here. And I would change the angle of the dart. These are both very, very easy things to do, by the way. It's just a matter of going, oh, I want the apex to be here, boop, and it's done. That's all you have to do. And then when you want to change the angle of your dart, if you're a little bit scared about that, you could just cut this whole dart out. Just cut it in like a rectangle box. And then just position it so that the point is pointing at your new apex. Just drop it or raise it or lower it however you want. You can move it like this, just perfectly parallel down or up, or you can change the angle. Either way, right? Yeah, it is a kind of a Dolly Parton fit, isn't it? And look how short it got too. Like this is definitely, you know, a pretty short waist. Like this would be at my high waist. Back's kind of dipping. Let's see if we can get this closer on the shoulders without making them too tight. Yeah, it's a little bit too tight in the top. Right? Maybe I do this. Maybe I lift it up like this and then change the shoulder angle a little bit to kind of give myself space. But I just really don't think that this fits very nicely, even if I wanted it to be closer fitting. Instead, if I really want it to be closer fitting and kind of more of that Christian Dior hourglass fit, I would take the size that fits me around the high bust and the full bust, and then I would fit it to the ease that I want or don't want, right? So if that makes sense. So yeah, I would put that 18-14 on, and then I would just start taking off fabric, because at least we have a fit across the shoulders and the bust. We've got our circumference set. We're not taking away from that. So, all right, you guys have, I mean, that all useful to you, do you think? I'm hoping that that is a good way to look at it. And it's okay to email a company and ask them, you know, what is your high bust measurement for your size chart? Because they really should have, like, I know they only show you maybe 4 or 5 measurements of their size chart, but somewhere in their files, they have a very detailed size chart for every single size. Overfit, maybe. Too small. Now I'm getting a tickle. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks for coming, you guys. I'll see you